and welcome to Top 5 Nintendo Pokemon Edition. I'm your host. My name is Sam. My co-host here is Jake. Jake, how are you today?
Ahoy, I'm Dandy.
I love to hear that. Great. Today's episode, we are going to be doing Top 5 Underrated Pokemon. Now, for me, I think this is the hardest episode for me to come up with the top 5 list. I don't know about you, Jake.
So many options.
There's so many options. I'm pretty sure I genuinely went through every single one, and then it's like, what? How do you measure that? Underrated? I don't.
What does that mean?
Under what measurement? I mean, for me, there's Pokemon I like or I don't like them. Well, I like them all, but they're good or they're bad, right? Is in my head, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna pick ones that I like, and not enough people are talking about how much they like them. That's gonna be how I measure it. Because like, what do you underrated designs? I don't know how people are measuring this. Jake, what do you think? What does underrated Pokemon to you mean?
There's so much that needs to be taken into consideration.
Yes.
And I trust that you considered all of these things, from design to
I hope so too.
Moveset to cuteness.
How happy they make me.
How happy they make you. How they would work in your squad, your party. What else?
Those are all brilliant.
There's got to be more I'm missing.
Hopefully we think of them when we do this list. It's already been made. But
their abilities.
See, he's learning. Jake is learning a lot just from this season. I like that.
Typing.
Wow.
Their
weight.
Weight and height.
Weight and height.
That's
that matters.
True.
It matters.
Yes.
Exactly. If you are a very heavy Pokemon, you'll do more damage with Heavy Slam.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's
friendliness.
Their friendliness. If you're not so much Gen 8, but the generations prior, if you're max happiness, return does more damage.
Yes.
Well, I guess another thing is like, okay, no, this is good. This is good that we have, because I have more things that I can say and retroactively make these fit into my top 5. Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm very excited now to share my top 5 list. I was a little unconfident before, but now I'm very confident about it. Okay, so jumping right into number 5, I have maybe a controversial pick. Clefairy, not Clefable.
Okay.
Not the baby Pokemon. Clefairy. So this is a non-fully evolved Pokemon, which is why I felt like it's maybe underrated. Now there's plenty of non-fully evolved Pokemon that you can't say that they're underrated, right? That's not
right.
It ends right there. Pikachu is a very obvious one. Jigglypuff, Togepi, those are very perfectly rated Pokemon, I would say. Just from the like exposure in the TV show. And just marketing wise. Now, Clefairy, I feel like maybe didn't have that kind of presence. It's still a cute Pokemon. People are aware of it. Jake is refreshing his memory on the Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I have the right one in mind.
See, I'm so right. Jake needs to double check. That's how underrated this Pokemon is. Why is it underrated, you might ask? Okay, let's start. So it's not fully evolved, so you don't see it that often. But what you can do is you give it the item Eviolite, introduced back in like Gen 5, I believe it was. And for non-fully evolved Pokemon, that's going to boost both of your defenses. Clefairy has a good typing. It's pure fairy. And if you've listened to our type episodes, you'll know that fairy rocks. That typing rocks. This pure fairy is awesome too. You get a lot of important resistances and immunity to dragon, and you have high defenses. And Clefairy has pretty usable defenses as it is. And it also has access to a lot of cool moves. It was originally a normal type, and traditionally Game Freak would give normal types all types of coverage, right? They would, normal types used to always get Fire Blast, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, all that stuff to make up for how they didn't have any super effective hits. The Clefairy line is cool because it went from pure normal to pure fairy in Gen 6, so it became a fairy type that kept access to all these crazy moves. Insane.
Right.
You made a big mistake, Game Freak. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I will say though, what I was looking up is like from your perspective, sure, underrated.
Mhm.
From mine, anime background, not at all. I was looking up. It was the 6th episode ever of Pokemon was
Okay.
about Clefairy,
Was it? It was the like. What was the name of the cave? Moon Cave.
Mount Moon.
Mount Moon.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember Clefairy being in a lot of the episodes. I guess starting in episode 6, and was a very loved character in the show.
And you're not thinking of Jigglypuff, because Jigglypuff.
No, that's why I was
Okay.
double checking.
Okay, good. Jigglypuff, like I said, that just is not an underrated Pokemon.
Not at all.
Right there. Oh, it's in the Smash Bros. Game too.
Smash Bros. Yep.
Speaking of Smash Bros, Clefairy is pretty cool in Smash Bros. I believe that's the one that does metronome and anything can happen when you use it. That might just be in Melee.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
You're saying Wait, what? With the Pokeballs? Okay, yep,
Mhm.
sure. Probably.
And it could do anything. Yeah. That was crazy. Okay. Maybe in the early anime, it might have gotten some recognition. That's pretty cool. I really don't remember it. I don't even remember how that Mount Moon episode goes, but I know it exists. Now for the people that are dying to know, Sam, it's still a little baby. What's so good about it, right? Like, is that it? Top 5 of all of them?
Yeah.
Well, that's because I've kept my trump card in the back for this. It has a pretty limited ability in Friend Guard. Friend Guard's not going to help you in a singles battle, but in VGC, Pokemon's official competitive, which is always doubles, or even just doubles with a buddy, it reduces the damage of the ally, right? So you have an ally to the right that has a setup move. Let's say it's a glass cannon. You wouldn't really be able to use it otherwise because it would just die to 2 hits. You have Clefairy on the field. Clefairy, I believe it reduces quarter damage to the ally, and it also learns a bunch of other crazy moves. Follow Me, which means that when you use Follow Me, you have to attack Clefairy. You cannot attack the ally.
Okay.
And it has the Eviolite, so it's taking the hits.
Right. Nice.
And then it gets Heal Pulse, so you can heal your ally.
Okay.
And no one's thinking about this. No one's thinking about
that's
this.
a very strategic Pokemon you got there.
Thank you very much, Jake. So I think it's pretty cool. I also just like to see like funny Pokemon, non-fully evolved Pokemon do works strategically, and it makes me happy. Most importantly,
I would agree. It's one of those Pokemon that makes you happy.
Thank you.
And that's what matters the most.
It's a pretty decent design. It's kind of ambiguous in what it is, right?
I have no idea what it is.
It makes me. I think it's supposed to remind you of like a star. It's shaped kind of like a star. On the topic of the design, I don't know if you've heard this before, right? So let's talk about Clefable. Its final evolution. That also drew attention to its design because it's ambiguous. It looks like a star, right?
Yeah, it does.
But it also looks a lot like Gengar.
Okay.
Okay. Can we picture this? Right. A lot. The shape, the size. Gengar's the ghost Pokemon, the only ghost line in Gen 1, and Clefable is a normal type. So it kind of makes you think like, did Gengar come from Clefable?
Oh man.
I know.
Yeah.
Dark.
Yeah.
Dark.
It is.
Yeah, because like what's Gengar supposed to look like? A generic,
Ghost.
Like,
Yes.
I don't know. But you could say that about a lot of designs. Like it's like an anime art style. Like they have like a set way of like how they're probably going to be doing the eyes, especially in early generation. A lot harder lines. Yeah. So I don't think too deep in that, but it's pretty funny.
I'm looking at a picture of Clefairy, and going back to our previous episode where we were discussing the roundness of Pokemon.
Yeah.
In this picture, it's standing next to Pikachu, and it really just looks like a round Pikachu.
You're totally right.
Like you're
totally right.
It has the red cheeks. It has the black tips on its ears. It's just a pudgy Pikachu. It's like instead of having the zappy tail, like the lightning tail, it's like a little fuzzy round tail.
No, you're totally right. You showed me the picture. They're right beside each other. I guess it's from that episode directly. It's interesting. So how I think of it is, yeah, it's a fairy type. I think of it as kind of like the alien Pokemon, right?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, because it's like, moon. Like it evolves with the moonstone. You find it
Right.
in Mount Moon. It does it's the Pokemon that does the finger wag metronome thing. It feels like it's all magic, but it feels supernatural in a weird way.
Yeah, mystic.
Cool. Yeah. Any closing crazy thoughts on this Clefairy Pokemon?
I thought the Pikachu comparison was pretty crazy.
I'll
leave it at that.
That was really crazy. Probably hard to top. I respect that. Jumping right into number 4, we have a Pokemon that we have discussed in length already.
Nice.
But I have to bring it back.
Okay.
I have to reinforce this.
I'm excited.
Umbreon.
Umbreon. Sweet.
Underrated.
Okay.
Underrated. Here's why. We talked about this before in the EV episode. It's hard to obtain Umbreon, right? It's inconvenient too.
If I recall, this was your number 1 evolution.
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
And in game, it's pretty hard to obtain it because you have to max out happiness, which just literally takes time to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to have the happiness maxed out and level up at night. Like, sure, you probably play video games at night, but like, you got to be
At night
sleeping.
IRL, not in the game.
Yeah, I mean, if you have your clock set to like IRL time,
Okay.
which I think you normally have to, then yeah, like IRL night.
Yeah. Silly question.
Yeah.
Do the Pokemon games have day and night usually in their own like internal clock?
Yeah, it depends on the game. Like
Okay.
Gen 2, that was a big thing.
Okay.
That it was like, oh, there's a clock and there's day and night.
Right.
And it like matches. Because they were trying to be more immersive in Gen 2. And like you had people
Okay.
that could like call you. Like you had a phone and like random people you met would call you and say stuff.
Earthbound-esque.
Yeah. Right.
Because obviously Arceus does, and that's a big thing. But I didn't play any Gen 2 games, but I don't really remember much day and night.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because there was like Pokemon would come out at night and then they would not come out during the day.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of the other ones that used it. I feel like Gen 4 did that too. And I think it's a cool mechanic. I mean, why not? Sure. There's so many Pokemon to pick from, and the problem is always like, where do we stuff all these?
Yeah, that's fair. Not to stray a little bit, but speaking of the day and night, like I don't recall much of it in Pokemon, but in Zelda it's always like a really big thing.
Yeah.
And like that's like my least favorite mechanic of Zelda games. It's like so annoying to like explore an entire place in the day and then essentially, if you're me, like have to explore it again entirely at night because there's different things.
Yeah, that's fair. It leads to the question of like, so how I would defend it for Pokemon is there's so many Pokemon, like it's probably still fun if you just cram them all into one area and then you say, you could encounter 15 in this one patch of grass. They all have a 10% chance to find them. Or, I don't know, that math was probably horribly wrong, actually. Or do you want to do it like, okay, you could find, 7 of them in the morning, but 2 get switched out at night, and it makes it a little bit more immersive, and then it becomes nighttime, and maybe you were running out of things to do, and it's like, oh, it's nighttime. I can get the Hoot Hoot now.
Yeah. To compare the Zelda to Pokemon, I would say in that circumstance, my opinion on that would be like you want a Pokemon that is in a certain area, but it only comes at night. So you're not gonna like wait there until nighttime in the game. You're gonna go do other things, and then like as soon as it's night, you suddenly have to drop whatever you're doing and go back to the area. That's just annoying to me, and that's like what I was talking about in Zelda mostly, I guess. But also, on the other hand, a game like Animal Crossing does it fabulously because it's like matched with real time. So it's so sick to like when I was playing the game, I would pretty much play like in the morning for like an hour or something, just like do my rounds on the island. So it would be like such a different experience to play the game at night. It's like, whoa, I've been missing this my entire life. Like, like the stars are out. It's a whole different game. That's fun.
No, I get you. It's how you relate to the immersion of a game. Is how I see it. And how much immersion do you value, right? So I get that. I think it definitely makes things more convoluted is one way of saying it. And I think so back to Umbreon. Yeah. So that's a little bit inconvenient, and it's also it's hard to use. Like it's hard to use Umbreon, especially compared to the other Pokemon that are more colorful, have stronger attacks. I mean, in Gen 2 when Umbreon came out, like it didn't really have moves it could use. Like Crunch was really weak, especially off of Umbreon. Tyranitar was in that same game. I mean, what do you want to have Umbreon the Dark type when it could be any other evolution, and you want to get Tyranitar late game? It's not for everyone. Not for everyone. But I love this Pokemon. I think it's very underrated because, like I said in the episode, it's a wall that can take any hit. It, over time, got access to moves as moves came out that just slowly made it better and better. Moves like Foul Play that use the opponent's attack instead of your own. Perfect. And it's a Dark type move, so you get the bonus. Being pure Dark, it's like a passive kind of type coverage. So you're weak to Bug, Fighting, and Fairy. And that's it, right? And you resist Ghost and you resist Dark, so it's kind of like not too much crossover, and you're able to deal with other Pokemon pretty well. I think it's cool. I like the design a whole lot. This is another moon. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait, it's another moon.
Mm-hmm.
This is spooky.
Is this like your whole list where you're going for like a theme?
No, that's the scary part.
Oh
I know. Because, okay, so for people who have no clue what I'm talking about, because I just started saying moon, the circles on Umbreon are like reminiscent of, the shape of a moon, especially because it's like the night Pokemon type of thing. And Clefairy also evolves with the Moonstone, so interesting.
Creepy.
Moon type when? Just kidding. Please don't. So that's what I like. I mean, I like everything about it, and I think it looks cool, and it does the thing well, and I think it just gets outshined. That's really what makes it number 4, is in comparison to the other evolutions, especially to the day-to-day. And we discussed it. We discussed this in the evolutions episode. There's more things going on. Does it even have the paw boots? I forget. Did it have the paw boots? I'm going to figure this out.
I got the image up already.
Yeah.
It does. It's only like a slightly darker. I guess it depends.
Interesting.
Which animation you're looking at.
Interesting.
Some of them do, some don't. It seems like actually the animation doesn't, but this plushie doll does. I don't know what's going on there.
Interesting.
But I guess it. No, I think it usually does it. I don't know why the plushie has it. That's
I
funny.
mean, I get it. Not every evolution needs to have the paw boots, but I think it'd have a couple more fans if it did.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't tell if it's just like the shading or it's like actually a little darker.
Which sprite are you looking
Like-
at? Let me see.
like one foot is darker and the other is
Oh my
not.
gosh. That's like a lighting
It's
thing.
got to be the shading, right?
Yeah, it's like shadows.
All right. Well, there you go. No paw boots. Silly Pokemon.
Silly.
Would never use it without the paws.
Literally, but it's so good. But no paw boots, so I don't know. I mean,
Okay. I think you must be right because I do not like this Pokemon and would not use it as an evolution.
right. But if I gave you a team right now that had Umbreon, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Sam! Like, here's money for doing that for me.
Well,
like,
exactly.
I'm also
That's-
happier."
That's why I know you're right because you know more about Pokemon.
So I'm just right
so
by
me
default.
not liking it as a normie,
Yeah.
but you liking it
Makes it
must mean
underrated.
exactly. Wow. It must mean it's underrated.
So I nailed this one. Jake didn't have that revelation with number 5, so it makes me second guess my number 5 pick. Just kidding. It actually is number 5. Clefairy should be number 5, but Umbreon is absolutely number 4.
Absolutely.
That's perfect. Okay. Let's do number 3.
Let's do it.
Let's do number 3. Typhlosion.
Okay, that's you have to sell me on this one.
Oh, really? Okay. Whew. A little nervous now. I made like a master list. Like I went through every single Pokemon and I thought about the ones that should get more love than they do. And I'm like, okay, what about the starters? They're like the starters are so like there's so much exposure to just like the general Pokemon community that it's hard for them to see it and be like, the general mind to have an inaccurate conception of the Pokemon, right? Okay, that's a little bit.
I'm confused.
It's a little bit confusing how I said that. It's like, how could it be underrated? Like,
Exactly, 'cause
like
it's a starter.
Everyone just agree. It's a starter. Everyone knows it. They probably like it a little bit. They probably think that
Yeah.
Cyndaquil's at least cute.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if people don't like it, maybe it's just bad. Sam, did you consider that? Maybe it's bad, right?
Do people not like it? Is that a general thing? 'Cause
It's very underused. Very, very underused. I think if you were to do like a Gen 2 run through, I mean, I don't know why, but I feel like those starters really don't get as much credit.
Okay.
They don't deserve a lot of credit, but there's just other starter trios that are just discussed so much more. I mean, I think them not getting mega evolutions, not that they needed them, didn't give them a lot of relevancy. They're irrelevant. That's the word. That is the word for it. They become very irrelevant. They're pretty old at this point. Sure, we had the remakes. I think if people were to play Soul Silver, Heart Gold, or any Gen 2 game, they probably would just pick Cyndaquil because it's like the cool one.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, let's think about it. Starter evolutions. Go, Sam. All right, so you have Charizard. Then you have Typhlosion. Okay, so Charizard, that is a rated Pokemon, if I've seen one. Typhlosion. Okay, let's go back to this in a second. Blaziken. Pretty popular, in my opinion. Infernape.
Yeah.
Also pretty popular. And then I believe it was Emboar. Okay. Yeah, no one knows. Forgotten.
More like boring.
Yeah, more like boring because it was another firefighting for no reason. Thank you. Okay. And then we had the Firefox Pokemon that I can't even remember its name.
Don't look at me.
Don't look at Jake. Okay, so that was also forgotten. And then we had Gen... Oh, wait. Incineroar might have been Gen 6. Okay, so Incineroar is definitely rated properly. What I'm trying to get at, and I'm getting at very slowly, is that the fire starters are generally loved. I think that the fear of like fire as a damaging thing is very relatable to kids. I feel like I've said this a bunch of times. It's because I'm so true. I'm so true about this. So I just named like 4 fire starters that are loved so greatly, and it takes the eyes away from Typhlosion. Okay, enough about why I'm right. I have to start explaining why I'm right.
Please.
Yes, I will. It gets Eruption, which is one of the strongest fire moves. I think we talked about V-Create. Victini's move is the strongest fire move, but Typhlosion's Eruption is next in line. Eruption hits for like 150 base power when your HP is full. Typhlosion is very fast. It's a very fast Pokemon. It's one of the fastest, I think, behind Infernape in speed.
Okay.
Or yeah, something like that. And it also has an interesting design. It's like bipedal, but also not, right? So it can be on the ground, it can be up. Sometimes it has fire coming out of its back, sometimes it doesn't. It's like this ambiguous, interesting design.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what Pokemon was going for with the starters. Like, they didn't want the design to be shallow, like the end of the story at first sight. I'm thinking about how Charizard is kind of a dragon, but is it? Is it a lizard? It flies. It leaves room for discussion and thought.
Right.
And then Typhlosion, I thought was the same way. I mean, I did get confused as a kid because I saw it depicted in so many different ways. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I think that's actually pretty interesting, in hindsight, how it does it. I do like how Legends Arceus brought some relevancy to Typhlosion.
Right.
We got the fire and the ghost, but I almost feel like it makes the original Typhlosion even more underrated because it's like, wait, you just made a better Typhlosion.
Yeah.
Fire and ghost is better in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, it's fast. It does hit hard. It's got Eruption. It also has other cool moves. I believe it gets Focus Blast and Solar Beam, and it's pretty nice. I mean, I can't say it's better than the other fire starters. I mean, I prefer the Mega Charizards or Blaziken or Infernape, but this is very cool and should not be forgotten. Jake, what are your thoughts?
I don't mean to contradict.
Contradict.
But I love Typhlosion.
A real one.
Never would have guessed that Typhlosion's underrated. But I am not any part of the Pokemon community, so I don't know what the general consensus is. But playing Arceus, Typhlosion was probably like my most used Pokemon. I loved it. Like you just said, I love the fire dark typing. Very cool. It had like so many different moves it could use, different typings and stuff. Very fast. I love fast Pokemon, and especially late game, pretty much like one hit takes down any Pokemon you're up against in Arceus.
Yeah.
To be fair, you did make the distinction of Arceus Typhlosion and the OG Typhlosion.
Totally different.
Mm-hmm. I did not play Gen 2, so perhaps you're correct.
I am. Thank you. No, I'm with you because I picked Typhlosion because I knew it was going to be Fire and Ghost, and I saw the design, and I thought it was really cool. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, it's getting like some relevancy. Mm-hmm. And they made it like easier to use just because you have like, you know, it's dual stab, so you can hit off of a Ghost move and a Fire move. Mm. So I'm with you on that. And I think that you're just right alongside me, right?
Okay.
That's all it is. You just you like it, and you just didn't know it was underrated.
All right.
Right? So you're just right with me. You know what I mean? Like, we're just both right, is how I see it. I found the name, the Firefox. Delphox. It is Gen 6. I was right the whole time.
Okay.
Never second guess yourself, Sam. Incineroar is 7. Incineroar has, like, for VGC, it has, like, a crazy percentage use. It's, like, I think it's, like, above 75% of every team has that same Pokemon. Wow. Yeah.
That's
Firestarter.
Impressive.
You'll see it. It's the one in Smash Bros. Mm-hmm. The wrestling fire guy. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. I do like the Pokemon, too. And then Cinderace is also very nice. So that's what we have for number 3. I've clearly bewildered Jake on that pick. But like I said, I'm right, and he knows it. So that's cool. I think before we go into number 2, we could take a quick break.
Let's
and we'll
do
hop
it.
back in.
Has this ever happened to you?
This video game is bullshit!
Are you tired of gaping plot holes and boring gameplay mechanics?
Look, all I'm saying is that if a full-fledged Krogan is falling off a platform, there's no way Commander Shepard has the upper arm strength to pull him up.
Has reading become just too tedious of a chore?
Ugh, books.
Are you bored of your same 3 murder podcasts?
Shocking. It's The Butler.
Allow me to introduce you to the brand new fan fiction podcast with an X, hosted by our lovely basement-dwelling and real-life Muppet, Dan McCoy.
Well, that's hurtful.
And myself, of course, the blonde bombshell, with the blood of Odin and the great looks of Jake Busey from Starship Troopers.
That's accurate.
And with our powers combined...
No.
Oh, you never let me do what I want to do.
I said no, man. We're not doing that.
Fine. Anyway, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your fix from. Remember, fan fiction with an X.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from the Studio Demands It podcast,
Where every episode we take a demand from a hypothetical studio,
which could be you,
and challenge ourselves to conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film based on the stipulations
or the demands
we are given. We talk about movies all the time. Particularly, we complain about the choices made in the films we've seen.
We're nerds like that.
And, of course, like any good nerd does, we automatically assume that we could do better.
Even with the demands and restrictions that clearly must have been put on by a production.
So head on over to studiodemandsit.com and listen to our previous library of episodes. Our library of previous episodes. Our precious library, Jim. Our library of precious episodes.
You're a pirate, Smeagol.
Okay, so head on over to studiodemandsit.com to listen to our library of episodes.
And submit your demand for a future episode, too.
So go do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, end of ad.
And we're back. Okay, so before I jump into number 2, like I said, I went through every single Pokemon and just started like writing down all the names of the ones where I'm like, oh, it could be this. Oh, it could be this. It could be this. And then I just from there got so anxious and just settled on 5. So I have a lot that I wish could make the list, but they did not make the list. And I just like to include some honorable mentions before we jump into number 2. So I love the Pokemon Munchlax.
Okay.
Snorlax is
Yeah.
pre-evolution.
He's a funny one.
He's a funny one. Munchlax debuted in one of the Pokemon movies, I believe. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
Could have been.
It's like Pokemon Heroes or something. And it was
Okay.
very exciting because, we were anticipating the Gen 4 release, and I believe this was the first Gen 4 Pokemon that we got to see.
Okay.
And it was, it was awesome. And it was great because it was familiar. Like, Snorlax is such a popular Pokemon.
Yeah.
And to see what feels like, like a new interpretation of the Pokemon in the form of a pre-evolution was awesome. And then you play the game and you find out Munchlax has like a 1% encounter rate when you like shake the trees in Diamond and Pearl. Super hard to get. I
Yeah.
mean, you're better off like trading a Snorlax and breeding for a Munchlax. And it's also a baby Pokemon, so it doesn't hit nearly as hard as Snorlax. And Snorlax was such a loved, definitely used Pokemon up until then. So it's kind of like, this is more of a novelty. It's like, oh, I caught a Munchlax, 1%.
Right.
Now, with that said, it's actually pretty good. And for similar reasons to Clefairy, the Eviolite item gives it more options because it's pre-evolved, so it can boost its defenses. And with that, you can last for a while in the battle.
Okay.
And I also just like the design a lot.
Yeah. It's a funny design.
It's funny because Snorlax is like the Pokemon that's just huge and does nothing. Like
Yeah.
you can't move it.
Yeah.
And then Munchlax, it's like Munch, I guess, because it's like so into eating. Like it's
Yeah.
going to get really big because it eats so much. But it also looks like mischievous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it has what looks like a mask
Like a
thing
mask,
on,
yeah.
right? And like ambitious in that regard.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. It makes my brain go. What about you? Do you like Munchlax?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I like Snorlax, so it's hard to appreciate a Prevolution that is probably not as good.
Interesting. So that doesn't cut it for you that you like Snorlax. You're like, oh, I'm much happier using.
I think so.
Just Snorlax. Okay. No, that's fair because that's what makes it underrated, as it's like
Right.
Snorlax
Yeah.
exists.
Fair
Like
enough.
you evolve the Munchlax. Stop
Yeah.
wasting your time, Sam.
Yeah.
I get that. But that's why I'm right. So,
Okay.
yep. Sorry, Jake. Sorry about that. Next is another Pokemon from Gen 4. It's going to be Chatot as an honorable mention.
Okay.
Definitely not number 2. This thing is
looking
stuck
this
in
one up.
honorable mention. Please look it up. You'll remember it. I forget exactly how you get it in Gen 4. But it's an interesting one because it had a signature move in Chatter. Chatter wasn't too strong of an attack, but it was to take advantage of the microphone that was built into the DS. Gen 4 Pokemon
Okay.
Diamond and Pearl Platinum was the first Pokemon game that allowed you to use a microphone, and they were trying to find ways to incorporate the microphone. So what you did for Chatter was once it learns Chatter, you can actually set what the sound is. You know,
Okay.
those, and the older Pokemon games, they had very simple like sounds that would play when you used a move. And so for Chatter, the idea was like it's doing the thing where birds repeat what they hear.
Mm-hmm.
So you say something into the microphone, and when it uses Chatter, it says what noise you made in the microphone, right?
Yeah. That's cool.
It's like a fun gimmick.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this could be a correct take because I can't imagine using this over Staraptor.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's because Staraptor is like top 1 Pokemon of all
Exactly.
time, and you get
So-
it. It's way more convenient to get in the game.
Exactly. Which makes me believe. I mean, this isn't a pick, so I don't want to like make you talk for 10 minutes
Sure.
about it. But
Sure.
perhaps it has some benefits over Staraptor that might persuade some users to use it instead.
Yeah. Exactly. There is one final interesting thing about it. Of course, Staraptor is better because it's faster and it hits way harder, and it's more consistent in what it does. The one thing Chatot has going for it is that signature move Chatter, and what you do is when you record your voice for Chatter, scream as loud as you can. It doesn't tell you this, but the louder the sound, the more percentage chance you have of confusing the target Pokemon, right?
That is so sick.
So if you scream at max volume for the microphone to take, it actually has over a 30% chance to confuse the target. That's really high, especially because of how confusion worked in Gen 4.
Yeah.
It was hard to break through it. You'll end up doing damage to yourself when you hit yourself in confusion. So at 31% chance, I believe that's the highest percentage chance. Now, you throw in a choice scarf, you go faster than most Pokemon, they end up getting confused. That's pretty funny. You're bound by luck. Here's the thing, is that for a lot of official Pokemon tournaments, they actually had this move banned.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not because of the luck factor. Luck's the name of the game.
Okay.
They didn't want you screaming swear words into it and then having the swear words project over the speaker to the audience. Literally.
They couldn't have just said you are banned if you curse in the...
It'd be too late. How are you supposed to know? You're supposed to test the chatter to a ref before you play the game.
Yeah.
So they were just straight up like, we can't risk it.
That's funny.
You're not allowed to use chat.
It's a sidestep real quick.
Yeah.
I just watched a YouTube video about the last games done quick, which is like annual like convention where speedrunners like do their thing, and it's like obviously virtual because of COVID. So this guy like played the whole game totally fine, like really well, and then did the DLC for this game. I don't remember the game, my bad. But did the DLC and like used like a segmented like pre-recorded run and like pretended he was doing it live. And like at one point he like lifted his right hand, which like would be moving the camera, and the camera moved while his hand was on. You know, you could see him like scratching his face, and he's like, "Oh, I was using my left hand for that bit." And then like he got called out like a week later and was like, "Yeah, I faked it. I was just trying to like take a." Like, you know, just take a dub for the speedrunning community and showcase new like strategies and stuff. Like he was trying to like talk his way out of it. So funny.
Why is that such a thing for like the high score community
it's
to
ridiculous.
Like just be cheating? It's like,
especially after you just beat the entire game legitimately, and then this was just the DLC that he like segmented. So goofy.
It baffles me because it's like, does it mean that much to you for everyone else to be like high score, high score? You know, like who cares?
It was also it was like a record, like first the fastest time. So it's like he was actually just gonna claim it without like for no reason.
It's like, dude, just try.
Yeah.
Like just try to beat it.
Just get better.
Literally, that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough for the honorable mentions. I have to say the last one. E06. That is my last honorable mention. E06. You probably don't know it.
I don't think I do.
That's okay. All I'm gonna say is it's an electric type that has the ability to levitate, so it has no weaknesses.
That's sick.
Bingo. Yep. I mean, of course, there's ways around that. You have an ability that goes through abilities like Excadrill's Mold Breaker ability. You can still hit it with Earthquake, but that's a little bit more of a niche situation. So yeah, you rule out with no weaknesses. Very nice. Checkmate. Okay, let's finally say number 2. Number 2 is a Pokemon that is very, very, very cool. It's Exploud. Exploud is a Gen 3 Pokemon. It's a normal type, and for a while it didn't have a lot going for it. It was more of a conceptual Pokemon, I would say. It had the soundproof ability, so it couldn't be hit by sound moves. But it was just a normal type that had, you know, pretty basic coverage for a normal type. You could get this Pokemon pretty early on in, Gen 3 run-throughs, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, through Whimsir, I think is the first level. And that was kind of that. It didn't really have impressive stats. It had an okay HP stat, so it could take some hits, but as you go through the game, there's just better options, is all it is. And that all changed when Pokemon came up with the move Boom Burst. Boom Burst is one of the strongest moves, for sure. It's a 140 base power, normal type move with 100% accuracy, so it hits every time. And it is a sound move, which means that it goes through Substitute. That is very powerful, and it's great for normal types that don't have super effective multipliers. So 140 basically acts as if the move would have been super effective, right? sound move goes through substitute, like I said. And lastly, Xcloud has a very cool ability called Scrappy. How
Okay.
Scrappy works is normal moves and fighting moves can hit ghost Pokemon.
Mm.
So nothing can switch in on a Boom Burst,
Okay.
right? Now you're saying, Sam, aren't you forgetting that there's other types that resist normal? Can't they just switch on a Boom Burst? Of course they can, and it'd be futile, because it also learns Focus Blast, a fighting move to hit the steels, hit the rocks.
Ooh.
Learns Surf, if you want something more accurate,
Mm-hmm.
to hit the rocks. Or Fire Blast, if you want something more accurate than Focus Blast to hit the steel types.
Nice.
That, boom, I just gave you a great set right there. 4
Yeah.
attacks. Nothing can switch in on it. Those are all very strong attacks, and it doesn't need a super impressive attacking stat if the moves itself are already pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. I have heard some people. I actually was inspired to add this to the list yesterday because I was talking to a friend who asked me my opinions on the idea of a sound type. I think Wolfie VGC
Okay.
made a video on the idea of a sound type. There's certain sound Pokemon. We just talked about Chatot. Now we're talking about Xcloud. It's kind of funny how like such a specific concept and the idea like sound can like hurt you. That's pretty relatable. I think it makes the lore of this Pokemon pretty interesting. What do you think?
I didn't recognize this Pokemon, but it sounds fantastic.
Yes.
So definitely a solid pick.
There we go.
It looks
Oh, I'm
hilarious.
so happy. It does.
Does it always have its mouth open?
I don't think it always has its mouth like gaping open.
That's so funny. It has like red eyes.
Yeah.
It's partaking in some recreational activities.
Yeah.
Funny looking Pokemon.
It
I
is.
have no idea what it's supposed to be.
No, exactly. I think I never used Xcloud when I did my run-throughs of Gen 3. And I think that's because, first of all, it is pretty hard to use without those high base power moves. You
Yeah.
know? And also, its design is a bit unrelatable, especially as a kid. You're not really sure what you're looking at. You're not sure like what really makes it strong outside of it kind of doing a strong-looking pose.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be more inclined to want to get a Pokemon like Salamence or Metagross,
Right.
Flygon, something that feels like, oh, it looks like a dragon, it looks strong, it looks built. But it is a cool Pokemon.
I guess that's what
Yeah.
makes it underrated.
That's what makes it underrated.
You cannot judge a Pokemon by its looks.
Absolutely. Jake, what are your feelings about this fabled sound type and if it should be made
That
to balance
sounds
the
really
game any
sweet.
further? Okay, interesting.
I am for it. It sounds really cool. Sure, there are like a whole array of Pokemon that could like retroactively be made into sound Pokemon.
What are some examples if you could think of any off the top of your head? I have some if
Yeah,
you're blanking.
I actually was trying to think of some when you mentioned it, and I am not well versed enough.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I have some in my head that I think would be pretty cool.
Shoot.
I'm thinking of like Jinx. Jinx is
Yeah.
like based off of like some performer in
Okay.
Japan. And I think like, okay, why is it ice and psychic, right? It seems so odd. I'm sure it goes into the lore, but you can definitely make one of those types a sound type, right? Because it looks like a singer.
Yeah.
You could do like ice and sound. Xcloud, of course, could be sound. Chatot could be sound. Noivern, the dragon bat, could be
Yeah.
sound. Any bat.
Any bat.
Any bat.
That would be cool. I'm thinking. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Crobat,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it sounds like a cool idea. I was
Mm-hmm.
also trying to think of what it could, like if it had a second type, like opposite. What would that be?
Oh, okay. Oh, like another type on top of that, like
Yeah, if
their
they had
sound?
like two new types, like
Okay.
to counterbalance each other.
Two new types I would be pretty annoyed at that
Okay,
much
okay.
of like, because I think
Too
that
much.
yeah, I think just because the type balance is pretty decent, but it's not perfect as it is right now. I mean, people love to bring up how like bug types are just generally weaker. The coverage doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
Same for ice. Ice is like a really fragile typing. And I think if they just need like one type to help those others out. If they did come out with two types, I would welcome it. I mean, I love the addition of Fairy. I wouldn't mind it. I don't think it's super necessary, but if they did it, it would make sense. And if it helped balance things out, I'd be like, thank you. I'd be grateful. And yeah, X-Cloud would probably be even better. You know,
Yeah.
If they made it like a dual type, that'd be cool. Any other thoughts on this wonderful number 2 pick?
I see that it's 4'11", and that's funny to me. It
The
looks
height?
like, yeah.
It looks stocky, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it
Like
looks
low
like
to
it'd
the
be
ground.
huge.
Yeah. Well, I feel like its body is like that. Like its body's like the 4 feet, and then like its
Yeah.
feet is the 11. Is like in my head.
Yeah.
It's not in front of me. I could be totally wrong, but that's how I picture it. No, I'm totally right. I'm looking
Yeah.
at the picture right now. I'm so right.
It has no legs, essentially.
It's all body. It's like just a giant like boom box with
You
like
know what it
a
looks
stub.
like?
What?
Remember Crazy Bones? The little toy figures. Look it up.
Yes. No. I actually do, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna look it
looks
up
like
so I
a
can compare
Crazy
it.
Bone. Absolutely. I avidly collected Crazy Bones when I was like 8.
This is gonna be like way off topic, but it's just I need to say it because it made me think of it. Yeah, I also had a bunch of these Crazy Bones, and what we would do is we would stack them all up like bowling pins.
Yeah.
So not stack them on top of each other, but
Yeah.
like, you know, just hold them upright, and then you
Yeah.
would like flick the
That
Crazy
was
Bones.
yeah. That was what you were supposed to do.
So
I
it's what
think.
you're supposed to do. So what I would actually do is I had so many of the Pokemon mini figurines that I would play Crazy Bones with my Pokemon figurines.
That's sick.
Yeah, or like little figures.
That's so
And
sweet.
yeah, because like the Crazy Bones are cool and it makes sense they knock each other over, but the Pokemon would be like, you know, like they're just different shapes, so it was like
Yeah.
other strategies of doing
Absolutely.
it. Very cool.
Anytime I had like $5, I would beg my dad to drive me to like the Learning Express or whatever to buy a pack of Crazy Bones.
Yes, that's awesome. I totally forgot about these. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Listeners should definitely Google these. They admittedly do not look very impressive as an adult. Oh my gosh! Wait! You have to look at this, dude.
Yeah.
This one looks so much like X-Cloud.
Yeah, dude, I'm saying.
Wow.
I definitely had like all of those.
Oh my
like,
gosh!
Everything I'm looking at right now.
I wish I knew the
had
name
so
of
many.
it to make this more relatable to people listening.
Do they have names, the Crazy Bones? I don't know if they had names.
I wonder if the Crazy Bones community would be like, "Oh yeah, that's like Goblin Man." I don't know.
Yeah, I think like me and my friends and like brother like gave them names, but I don't
You
know.
have
if,
to.
I don't know if they actually had names.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah. No, you're totally right. I wonder what came first. So now we can go into the number 1 pick.
Uh-oh.
The
I'm
absolutely
so nervous.
most underrated Pokemon of all time is obviously Tauros.
Yo.
It is.
Okay.
Jake knows it. That
Off the bat, I'm with it. I'm with it.
makes me so happy. And I'm totally right. So here's the thing about Tauros. In Generation 1, Tauros was the best Pokemon. You can't have a great. You definitely can't have a perfect team. I don't even think you could have a great team in Generation 1 if Tauros is not on it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Tauros. In Gen 1, it was so hard to get a Tauros. You had to get it in the Safari Zone. Its encounter chance was pretty limited, and it's just really hard to use the Safari balls.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't good odds. It was all luck.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't, in the Safari Zone, you can't like lower their HP like that. So it was just annoying. I never really got to use Tauros, right? In Gen 1.
Mm-hmm.
And in Gen 1, Hyper Beam was messed up.
Yeah.
So Hyper Beam was a physical attacking move, and I might have already said this on the episode, but if you knocked out a Pokemon with Hyper Beam, you didn't have to recharge.
Right.
Now, back in Gen 1, there was only so many fast Pokemon, and there was only so many bulky Pokemon, right? Like, there weren't that many options. So there was a couple fast, a couple strong. That was it. Tauros, at this point, was pretty fast and pretty strong, right?
Right.
So what you would do is you just use Body Slam and Hyper Beam, and that was all it took back then. There wasn't Steel types.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there were Rock types, but you had Blizzard, and Blizzard was strong enough to do some damage on a Rhydon or a Golem, and you could also just switch out if those came in. Blizzard had a higher accuracy, And freeze was very scary in Gen 1 because you would basically just be frozen for the rest of the battle. Right? So you're risking it when you switch in on a blizzard. So it was insane. And then this all fell apart in Gen 2 when they added steel types. They changed Hyper Beam, so you always had to recharge. There was a lot just stronger Pokemon in general. I mean, of course, there were steel types, but like Steelix, Skarmory, they could all just take down Tauros. And it kind of fell out of it. Blizzard was also nerfed. It lost its accuracy. And then just kind of got, more irrelevant as time goes on. I have a bit more to say on what makes it still good. Jake, what are your feelings?
Yeah, this is such a solid pick.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry.
Like, not even a Pokemon I would have thought about, but as soon as you said the name, I'm like, oh yeah.
It just clicked with you.
It clicked.
That's beautiful.
Like, I'm so aware of this Pokemon, but I would never think to use it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Also funny.
Yeah.
It's like, essentially like a bull or something, right? Or like, it's not even like a Pokemon.
Yeah.
Besides like the 3 tails.
It literally is just an animal.
Yeah.
And then they gave it
like
like
a bison
extra
or
tails
something,
for like no reason. Yeah. People don't like to talk about that, but Gen 1, I mean, they had to build everything from the ground up. Like, they didn't have time to do like quirky designs, right? So a lot of the Pokemon were just like animals. Like, was it Goldeen is a fish. Goldeen's a fish.
Actually a fish.
Seal is a seal, right? Voltorb is a Pokeball.
Is the seagull guy? Is that Gen 1?
Oh, Wingull?
Maybe.
Oh,
sure.
yeah. Wingull's Gen 3.
Oh, okay.
Also, I mean, it kind of looks funny, and it's really, like, angular.
Yeah.
Like, so, but yeah, it looks like a seagull. But, and then Tauros...
Pikachu, a mouse.
Those are fighting words. Those are indeed fighting words. I'm sorry Jake said that to you, listeners. Yes. So, no, exactly. The design was peculiar, because you're right. It has 3 tails. Why isn't this a psychic type? It makes me think of like how Espeon had an extra tail. Like some kind of mutation, psychic thing. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
What is it typing? Normal ice?
It's just normal. Oh, I wish it was normal ice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just normal. And so that's why it got all those coverage moves. It learns Fire Blast, it learns Blizzard, because it's normal, and that's just what they did. And that's why it fell out, because Pokemon just got stronger, the addition of Steel types, and Hyper Beam. So why is... Well, that sounds bad now, Sam. Why is it number 1? You just said all the things of why it's bad. Yeah. It's not perfect, but it over time it got access to new tools it could use, right? Its best ability is Sheer Force. So if a move has a secondary effect, it gets a boost. Okay. And there was also there's no real explanation for it. It might have been a bug that they just stuck with because people liked it. If you have the Sheer Force ability and you have the Life Orb item, Life Orb gives you a boost, but you take 10% recoil. You don't take the recoil when it's paired up. Life Orb and Sheer Force, they're bread and butter. Could be a bug. Who knows? They kept it in. So you just get huge boosts for moves like Body Slam that would paralyze normally, Rock Slide that would flinch, moves like that. They don't get their effects when it's with Sheer Force. It will take the effects away and it'll just give them the boost.
Oh, okay.
So that's the trade-off, but it's powerful.
It's more consistent.
It's more consistent. Well. Exactly, because you're not relying on that 30% chance to flinch or to paralyze. You're just 100% getting that boost.
Right.
You're a genius, Jake. Thank you for pointing that out.
Is it like a standardized boost, or is it kind of like it could be any percent from like 5 to 10 or something like that?
It's consistently a 1.3 multiplier, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Yeah, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Life Orb is also 1.3, I believe.
Okay.
So when you stack those up, I mean that's a lot, right? And for like no penalty, really. You know what I mean? I mean, if you don't have that chance of paralyzing in a pinch, but just play the game right, and don't rely on luck. I mean, easy to say. So that's what makes it really cool, and it still learns all those moves. So even moves like Fire Blast, even though it's coming off its bad special attacking stat, it still gets the boost from Life Orb and from Sheer Force. So you can still hit steals with that, right?
Right.
It also gets 2 other interesting abilities that you probably wouldn't be using as soon. Anger Point is funny. How it works is if it gets hit by a critical attack, a critical hit, it maxes out its attack. It goes +6
Okay.
on the spot. You can do some gimmick sets in doubles where you use 100% crit move on your own Pokemon
Okay.
and max out its
Yeah.
attack right there. And it also gets the Intimidate ability. Of course, that just drops your opponent's attacking stat. And in doubles, it drops, both of the opponent's attacking stats. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I like this Pokemon. It's fun to use. It's pretty easy to use. It's what they call power creep, right? In the gaming community, the idea that as a franchise goes on, they're always trying to one up themselves,
Okay,
and then older Pokemon start to become less powerful just comparatively through the additions. And Tauros was a victim of that, but there's still cool things it can do. Is how I see it. That's like
That is a super solid number 1 pick.
Thank you so much.
Aside from the Typhlosion little.
You did hate that.
Yep.
Yep.
Aside from that, I love the list.
Incredible. Even Clefairy.
Yeah.
Okay. It was just
mean-
maybe a curveball.
Well, I'm just speaking in terms of the anime. If
Okay.
you're not talking about
okay.
the anime, you're probably like totally right.
Wow.
Like I just
Wow.
have the anime background, and that's why
Totally.
I had to say that.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I'm glad that you agreed. I mean, I had so many that I wanted to say, but it was like, you can't name them all. If this was top 50 Nintendo, this would have been a long episode, and I would have had a great time. Okay, well, awesome. Why don't I just read back the top 5
Let's
right
hear it.
now? Yeah, number 5, Clefairy. Number 4, Umbreon. Number 3, Typhlosion. Number 2, Exploud. And then number 1, Tauros.
So solid.
Awesome. It's so much easier when I'm just doing the top 5, because remember in season 1,
Yeah.
it would be like, oh my gosh, wait, we just went back and forth. We just we're like trying to, combine these, and now what
Yeah.
did we come up with? And now I could just read my list again, and it's amazing.
Right.
It's so good. Awesome. Well, Jake, do you want to take us out?
Yeah. Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, you can follow us on the socials at Top 5 Nintendo, the number 5, not spelled out, Top 5 Nintendo. If you want to shoot us an email, top5nintendopod@gmail.com. If you want to find Sam Ansa on Instagram,
That is going to be Sam __ my last name spelled ANSA.
and TikTok,
That is going to be Mark Greg Sputnik. Sputnik spelled SPUNIK.
and if you want to find myself on Instagram, it would be Jake Naroden, Naroden, and on TikTok, Jake N Bake 9. That is an
The letter N.
as in Nancy,
Yep.
not an and. We would super appreciate, as always, feedback or review. I think on Spotify and iTunes, it is as simple as going to our page and on the top of the page, giving us a 5 or a 4, or hopefully not anything less than that. If you write a review, we promise we will read it and be extremely happy to get any feedback. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can feel free to shoot us a DM, and we will absolutely reply to you. And possibly at the end of the season, we will do an episode where we just respond to feedback and things like that if we get enough of it. Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. We are probably about halfway through Pokemon season,
I think so.
maybe.
Mhm.
Seems like it. So this has been a lot of fun changing up the format, and thanks for sticking around with us and listening.
Peace
See
out.
you next time.